Hi, this is Ronnie Amber's Night coming at you with a video. Um, Famous lighting problem because it's the evening. Um, Rather appropriate for what I want to talk about. Halloween is coming up, and I find myself at the horns of a dilemma. The committee that I'm part of for the local community have asked me, would I consider perhaps running a, game, a Halloween theme game at Halloween. Now, writing a scenario is not a problem for me. I'm going to go with a pretty standard cliche of a haunted house. I'm not even too much worried about what system I'm going to use because the system I want to use is Savage Worlds. I have the deluxe edition and I have the uh, horror companion, which more than suits my purposes. If I was looking at something that was going to be a longer campaign, I would have considered using something like Cthulhu or Occult, which are more of my go-to games. But I want to give Savage Worlds a run. It's a simpler system, and I want to give it a run. My problem is tone. Over the years, my horror games, such as when I get to do them, have become darker, more mature. Originally, when I ran them, as the running joke goes in my games, my players say that most of my games ran like an episode of Scooby-Doo. I mean, it's a running joke now, and it's one I laugh with them because I find it quite funny. Also because, yeah, there's some truth to that. But over the years, my games have become a lot more dark, a lot more mature. My problem is twofold. One, the players that are going to be there have never played a role-playing game before, let alone a horror one. And two, I'm not sure of the ages. I have said that if I'm going to run a horror game, it won't be for kids. I can't do a kids one. I have said in the past that you can run a version of a horror game for kids or younger teenagers. That version tends to be either a version of something comedic like Scooby-Doo or Ghostbusters, or it becomes something vaguely in the style of The Mummy. That's the trilogy with Brendan Fraser I'm thinking of, or Indiana Jones. That sort of supernatural treasure hunt. And actually, doing something in that style is very easy to do with Call of Cthulhu. Fits very nicely. But I really don't want to do that. I want to do a horror game. I want to do a really proper, give them nightmares, scare them shitless horror game. And this is where I run into my other problem. They've never played a role-playing game before. It might be too much for them. If I'm trying to entice them into playing role-playing games, it might scare them off if I go full on. But if I don't go full on, will it really be a satisfying, scary Halloween game? So I don't know. I don't know what I should do in this situation. Hence the video. I'm looking for comments. I'm not straying particularly out of my comfort zone with this. Over the years, particularly using Cult, because of a modern day game, I've had a particular penchant for writing serial killers. My attitude to writing serial killers is very simple. I think of something that's really sick and disgusting, something I would never do, and then say, right, that's what my serial killer does. and how do I now write it so it sounds logical? You know, this is what I would never do, and there's my game. But doing the old haunted house is easy. I can scale them very easily. I just don't want to scale them off gaming. So I find myself, it's unfortunate that the first game we're going to play is a horror one. It's just when it's falling. It's a pity it's not Christmas, because I could have done something very light, something in the vein of the Big Bang episode where they all played a fantasy game. They all played Dungeons and Dragons, and it was a Christmas-themed Dungeons and Dragons game, which I thought was hilarious. The campanology scene was great, and point for everyone who knows what campanology is while looking it up. And I really enjoyed that episode, and I could do something vaguely silly in that kind of vein. I could do that very easily. So I'm kind of stuck. My instinct is to do two. My instinct is to write two scenarios. Is to write something that's full on, and then to write something that's a little less full on, something in the guise of Scooby-Doo. Both set in a haunted house, although obviously in the case of the Scooby-Doo one, it'll end up being it won't be an actual ghost. It will be someone who, you know, would have got away with it if it wasn't for those pesky PCs. Whilst the full-on one will most certainly be one to give them nightmares. I mean, I've got about 3.5 hours worth of music, scores and so on, that I've pitched together on my iPod, just to, you know, be a little mood music in the background. Kind of like the idea. I might add to that just to try and get it over the 4-hour mark. But here's my, as I say, I'm coming back to my point now. I'd love some comments from you guys. I'd like to get some feedback on this because it's very important to me. Should I go full on? Should I hold back? Should I make it a light and frothy affair, or should I give them 100% sleepless nights? Because I find myself these days saying that you really have to go all out. If you're not in a horror game, if you're not scaring the shit out of them, you're not doing it right. In the same way, if you're doing a comedy game, if they're not, you know, bent over the table laughing, you know, bent over double, ribs aching, tears running down their face because they're laughing so hard, you're doing something wrong. If you're doing an action game, if the adrenaline isn't pumping in them all, you're doing something wrong. So, I don't know. I really don't know. I'd love your thoughts on this, I really would.